Hello, everybody. I was asked by a friend, Joao, to do a webcast or a video on my favorite tools. And my favorite tools, it's kind of hard to come up with, to be honest. There are so many great tools out there, but I had to condense it. I had to figure out what my top 4 favorite tools are, because I could have made a top 10, but then when you get further into this, the layers of like tool number 5, 6, 7, some of those change time by time. So what I did is I came up with the top 4 tools that I use all the time and that has a lot of great potential. They're not just a single tool to do a single thing. They're multi-usage tools that are essentially great for us in the industry to use for all sorts of things. So let us jump into it. Here I have a tool number 1, right? And it's going to be Netcat. Yes, Netcat is a simple, clean utility that does TCP, UDP, that's it. It will allow you to forward standard out, standard in, into the tool, out of the tool. It is just a small utility that can do amazing things. Like, for example, connect to open ports, sure, but it can also transfer files, we can set up backdoors, we can set up relays, and so on with it. It is actually amazing. So why don't I show you some of the things that we can use Netcat for. For example, here I have a little Netcat, a little Linux machine, and I can do, for example, Netcat listen verbosely on port 15088, my favorite number. And if somebody connects to this port, well, Netcat will take that data from the network and put it on standard out. Standard out meaning the terminal window. So, for example, if I went to Windows now and I were to say Netcat 10.10.75.1.15.08, so destination port 15.08, I can say hello YouTube. And when I hit enter, that buffer should be flushed, and I can see that I get back hello YouTube. This means that I can transfer data over TCP and also UDP. But there is more. Say, for example, I want to send a file from Windows to Linux or vice versa. I can either push that file or I can listen and receive that file. So here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say on Windows, we'll listen. We'll listen on a source port 15088. And I'm going to go and say, let's go Netcat, connect to my Windows IP address on that port, and I'm going to redirect standard in. So I'm going to take that 0, standard in, I'm going to say, put standard in into Netcat. So instead of reading stuff from my command line or from my keyboard input, I'm going to be reading from a file, for example, say etc password. And if I move this window to the right like that, hit enter, and I wait, blink, 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 it is waiting, and hopefully, there we go, all of a sudden, I transferred that data. Now, this data will be able to, instead of being put on standard out, I could redirect that standard out to, say, a file. I could go password, and it would have been written, right? I can transfer gigabytes of data if I want to. So Netcat is pretty sweet. I can say Netcat, listen on a port, or perhaps instead of listening, I'm going to do what we call a reverse shell here. I'm going to make the attacker machine on the right side here. I will listen on my Linux machine. Let's pretend this is the attacker. So I will listen on, say, port 15.08. Actually, let me listen on 443. So maybe it looks like it's encrypted communications, SSL, TLS. It's not going to be encrypted, but we can pretend. Then I'm going to go on Windows, and I'm going to say, let me move this on the left side here. I'm going to say Netcat 10.10.75.1, which is Linux, on port 443. And when you connect, dear Netcat, can you please attach standard in and standard out to cmd.exe? Essentially, I'm now making a connection across the network to 10.10.75.1 on port 443. And when the connection is made, create cmd.exe on this host and attach standard in, standard out to essentially allow me to, well, you can see, interact with that process on the network. Who am I? I am on the Windows system. I can now go cd into user, seg504, desktop, for example, maybe toss around some files, maybe download some malware, etc. It doesn't really matter. I can set up a backdoor. That is amazing. So Netcat is great in so many regards. Some people even compile Netcat. So it's by default installed on Linux. That's why we have it everywhere with us. But many people compile it without the -e option. So I believe several BSD instances, for example, OpenBSD, I don't think your Netcat will have the -e. In fact, you need to compile it with the gaping underscore security underscore hole compile option to make it have the -e option. But is that really true, though? Can't we do a lot of different things without -e? What if we did, like, say, bash? So we'll run bin bash, and we'll make Netcat talk to bin bash. There are options to make, say, for example, Netcat talk to bin bash. We need to set up basically a construct to allow us to talk between two different commands. So we're all familiar with, say, bin bash. We can pipe the output of bin bash into another command on the right side. Say, for example, netcat 10.10.0.1 on port 1508. I don't have the -e, so that's why I'm using bin bash on the left side. But this will not really work, because while I'm running bin bash on the left here and I'm piping it to the right, what about when Netcat makes that connection and the network tells me something back? Netcat here on the right side will put that data on standard out. And right now, standard out is not going back into bin bash. So to fix that, I can set up a little construct or a file. I can create a FIFO, a first in, first out, a pipe operator. Let's call it YouTube. And this type of file, you can see that it's been flagged as a pipe kind of file. Just imagine that it's a file that when you put data into it, it is being read immediately by whomever is reading it. For example, I could go echo hello world into YouTube, and my terminal just hangs because nobody is reading that pipe just yet. So when I cat YouTube, boom, hello world is being returned to me, and my command is now returned as well. So these pipes, or named pipes, can have a lot of usage. For example, what I can do is, with our command bin bash up here, what I can do is I can go bin bash, I want you to read from YouTube, all right? So standard in to bin bash will be from YouTube. Standard out from bin bash will be netcat 10.10.0.1, 1508. In fact, I need a listener first, so let's set up a little listener. Listen on port 15088. Go back to our command, hit enter. Let's see what happens. And blink, blink, blink. There we go. We got a connection ID. Who am I? Still did not run. Let's see what's wrong. Netcat listener both on port 15088. There is a mistake. I did forget the output of this into YouTube. So that's what you get when doing live demos on the fly. But we try one more time. So made the connection. Wait for the connection. My system is a little bit slow. I got a connection ID, and there we go. Who am I? I just got execution with Netcat without having the -e flag. I'm still interacting with bash in this case, and it just shows you how we can use the operating system in clever ways. Using these pipes and so on, students of my Sec504 class will be learning how we can set up complex relays, client-to-client relays that accepts connections or returns connections and allows somebody from the outside, for example, to proxy and shoot connections to the inside of the networks. It is beautiful. It is clean. I simply love it. All right, so that's my favorite tool number one, and I could talk about Netcat for a long, long time, okay? But what about tool number two? Oh, the beloved Cyberchef. Cyberchef is one of my favorite tools because it is, frankly, so amazing for so many things. Cyberchef is a tool by GCHQ that allows us to do otherwise complex operations like algorithms and modules. We can do all kinds of operations from the left side here and just drag those operations into a recipe that is set right now to auto-bake. But we will basically run that algorithm, that recipe, over and over, and we can change the algorithm as we are looking at input and output of our data. So right now, I have prepared a little string here. This is a base 64 string, and I know it because I made it, but if you didn't know it, you could click the little magic wand down here, it will detect that it's base64 based on the character sets. Okay, so this character set has uppercase characters, lowercase characters, numbers 0 to 9. You might see a plus and a slash. That brings us up to 64 possible characters. Hence, base64 is used here. So I'm going to go from base64, which is the default encoding for, say, PowerShell and so on. And I can see that I have now automatically baked my recipe, and the output changed. The output is now signaling some other kinds of encoding going on. %3D, that is going to be URL encoding, and I can just now drag and drop URL decode, and all of a sudden I see this padding, these equal signs that imply that, hey, this could also be base encoding, but it's all uppercase characters, and characters from 0 to 6. Base 32 matches that specific type of pattern. When I do from base 32, we can now see what looks to be bytes. Could this be hexadecimal bytes, 6F, 69, and so on? Let's try hex. We go from hex, and sure enough, it could decode it so well. Curious much? Yes, we are. We are very curious. That is what makes cybersecurity so exciting. We get that curiosity tickled all the time. But Cyberchef can do so much more. It can do XORing, XOR brute forcing, regular expressions. It can decode, encode, text, and so much more. Convert comma-separated values into JSON, format Markdown. It can render images. It can unzip. It can encrypt, decrypt, AES, bitwise operations, HTTP requests, DNS requests, JSON searches. It is amazing! I love it. There's more than 300 different operations, and it keeps on growing. So what I'll do here, I'm going to go in and I'll showcase one more example. Say I have this file here, sample PS vir. I can drag this file directly into Cyberchef. I can open up a folder of files. I can analyze one file. Doesn't matter. And here we have this little, well, some kind of variable, some PowerShell stuff that has a from base64 string that I'm going to copy in. And you can see that after the base64 string is being run here, it's doing a invoke expression, new object IO stream reader, and it's a gzip stream, and it has some decompress functions. So I'm going to take that base64, and I'm going to go, say, base64, from base64. So I decode it now. Not what I wanted to do. I decode it, and I can see a bunch of, well, garbage it looks like. This data that I'm seeing now is actually auto-recognized by Cyberchef. Gzip file detected. So it looks like it's gzip, so compression going on. Let's remove this from our recipe and search for gunzip or gunzip, and just like that, we have the actual PowerShell code that is being run on the system. And here we got some more obfuscation and so on. But essentially, it is so sweet, so easy to get going with Cyberchef. It is by far, definitively, one of my favorite tools all time. All right, so what's the next one going to be then? Those of you who know me, you might expect this. It is going to be Burp Suite. Yes. Burp Suite has become like the de facto pen testing tool for web applications. There is a free community edition out there. I got several videos on Burp Suite. I use the commercial version because I work as a pen tester and I need many of the professional types of features. I don't need throttling, I need extensions, I need the vulnerability scanner, and so on. But essentially, Burp Suite is really amazing. It allows me to have a dashboard of all my activities regarding my pen testing activities. It shows me a target with a sitemap of whatever is going on the websites. I have full control of my proxy with great proxy settings and configurations where I can change requests on the fly. I can modify my requests. Lots of very useful settings. It gives me access to a fuzzer, or what we call the intruder, where I can set and define payload positions and start to basically attack scripts with bytes, with word lists, with brute force algorithms, and so much more. I can repeat requests so I can figure out how this script works without using my browser. I can just go and just repeat requests over and over to see what happens when things are changing, when I change my input and so on. I have the collaborator, which allows me to get callbacks. In general, Burp Suite is amazing. Tons of great extensions. And if you wonder what extensions you should install, I recommend that either you check out my talks on Burp Suite that I have on YouTube, or people have recorded me and they have it on their channels. But any extension really that has been made by James Kettle, AlbinoWax, at the very least, check out those. ActiveScan++ is an amazing one. \powered scanner is another really powerful one. Authorize is amazing, although not from AlbinoWax. There are lots of cool plugins or extensions that make Burp Suite into a tool that can do almost anything that I need. It covers 95% of all the web app pen testing stuff that I do. I would love to see, of course, features such as JavaScript debugging, breakpoints, and so on, but I do that in my browser anyways. So I don't really need it in Burp Suite. I need Burp Suite to be how it is, and together with my browser, those two tools are typically the primary tools I use to break into web applications. All right, so that's a quick one. I don't want to spend too much time on Burp Suite. The final favorite tool that I have, which has great applicability. It can work for so many different things. It is great scalability. It has great community support, is Nuclei. Woo! Nuclei. Maybe you haven't heard of it. Let me bring it up in my browser. Project Discovery has this project called Nuclei, and what it is that it's essentially a scanner that will take a list of targets and scan those targets based on templates. Templates are configuring Nuclei how to interact with the target. And those templates, there's tons of great features in Nuclei, by the way. So they have a callback handler called interact.sh. They have lots of great features in terms of filtering, in terms of figuring out what templates you want to run and so on, can output into JSON, and just in general, it is super flexible. Incredible tool. And together with Nuclei, they have this Nuclei template project where people are committing all sorts of templates. For example, say, I can go in and say, I want to look into, say, the network templates. Here I have things like, say, exposures. I have exposure ADB, if ADB is exposed, whatever, Redis. So if we click one of these templates, you will see that they have some documentations and some classifications that we can use to filter on and so on. We got severity, we got the author, and then you can see what they're actually doing. They're doing TCP, they're looking for the following data from the TCP stream, they're looking for, they're inputting or configuring Nuclei with the following variables. It will read 2048 bytes of the network, and then you have these matchers that will basically determine if this is Nuclei or not. To be honest, I use Nuclei for a lot of different things. Primarily, I use it for a lot of network things, over HTTP, sorry. For example, HTTP stuff, that's where I typically use Nuclei, and I write my own templates, some which are contributed back to the community. But say, for example, exposed panels, there are so many different templates here for all kinds of different things. For example, checkpoint, here are templates on how to identify, say, the SSL network extender from checkpoint. We can go in, and you can see that they're looking for login HTML. If that script exists on the base URL, so your target that you're scanning, they will go through the following matchers, where in the body of the HTTP, they will look for the following title, SSL network extender login. Simple, clean, it is quite nice. So yeah, I would love to demo these tools more in depth. I would love to make videos on them. If you found this content useful, I would love for you to reach out, to tell me what content you would like to see. Follow me on my social media if you would like to. I have slides and presentations up on into.bio/Chris Dale. Don't be a stranger. Let me hear from you. The only reason I made this video is because one of my peers, one of the people I talk with, he said, Joao, can you please make a video on your favorite tools, Chris? So that's what I did. Everybody, it's been my pleasure. Peace out. Have a great day. Bye-bye.